Oh, my bad. Hey, yo, what's going on today, family? So, on today, I actually want to get real with you all. Um, a few years ago, I was I was swamped in debt. I was up to my necks in debt, and honestly, I was starting to give up. I was starting to lose hope, and I was starting to honestly think that the dream or the goal of being debt free was just a lie. It was something that was unattainable. At one point in life, I was on a debt journey and I paid off all my credit card debt, paid off my car, and I ended up with just, I would say, big debt, meaning a mortgage, and some student loan debt. And at that point, I started claiming I was debt free. But then life happened and I went back into debt again. So I started a second debt journey. And when I started that debt journey, life really happened. Life overtook me to the point where my debt overtook me. I started losing sleep. I couldn't focus. I couldn't think. Life just hit me super hard. And when that happened, yeah, I completely gave up. And I'm sure some of you have been like that before. You've been at the point where you've completely given up on whatever goal, whatever dream you had. And that's that's how I felt. And that's how life happens sometimes. It can hit you so hard to the point where you just give up. That to me is how debt makes me feel. It hit me so hard when I was completely swamped in debt that I just wanted to give up. But I can tell you, I've come a long way. Over the last year and a half, and even this year, I've been on this major journey to eradicate all my debt, to get rid of it by any means necessary. And a lot of people, they tell you that in order to cut debt, you have to give up everything. And I'm actually going to talk about that in a little bit, but I'm going to tell you that you don't have to give up everything. You just have to learn how to really budget and manage your finances. All right. For a short amount of time, you may have to give up a lot, but if you can get over that hump and really understand how to manage your finances and budget your money, you won't have to give up everything. It just depends on how fast you want to get rid of that debt. So with that being said, I'm going to share the three biggest things that helped me to be able to get to the point where I'm not debt free yet, but I'm in a way better position than I once was. All right. With that being said, number one. So the number one thing that I did to help me reduce my debt and get to the point where I'm positioning myself to be debt free, hopefully by the end of this year, if not by the beginning of next year, is I reduce my expenses. All right. I really started looking at my money. I really started looking at what I was spending. What I ended up doing is I ended up pulling my bank statements, my credit card statements, just to understand where I was spending money at. And believe it or not, I was spending so much money in subscriptions. Like a huge majority of my money was going to subscriptions and takeout. And I'm going to explain. So I had multiple subscriptions. At one point, DirecTV was this big thing. I had got rid of DirecTV because DirecTV had became too expensive. However, then I switched over to a bunch of subscriptions because it was cheaper to go that route than the DirecTV route. However, a lot of those subscriptions, what they don't tell you is every year they up their fees, right? I went in at renewal fees or entry level fees, or starter fees, whatever you want to call them. And you get this deal and then you forget about it. And a few months later, that fee goes up. I remember, I believe when I initially got stars, it was like $3.99 for the first 3 months. And I totally forgot about it. Next thing you know, I'm getting a $17, $18 a month bill. And that's just on one subscription. Mind you, I literally had about 8 or 9 different subscriptions. So I was literally almost paying the same amount I was paying for DirecTV for subscriptions. And the bad thing is I wasn't even watching them. So what I did, like I said, was I really started to reduce my expenses, and I had to back up on subscriptions. I had to reduce them. The next thing I've noticed was I was eating a lot of takeout. All right. I was eating takeout 3 to 4 times a week. And for me, it's like, well, I'm not eating takeout at home. At home, I'm eating a meal every night. Um, I'm not eating takeout for dinner, but where I was eating takeout at was for lunch at work. Literally, a month, I was spending an extra $100, $200 a month just in takeout. Literally 10, 15, $20 a day for takeout, depending on where I went. Sometimes may go to KFC or Wendy's or anywhere, and then sometimes go to a hibachi restaurant. And depending on where I went for lunch that day, it could cost. It would add up. So I really had to understand that I can't keep spending money on takeout. I had to, the way I was cooking dinner, I had to start cooking a lunch. I had to start making a lunch and bringing a lunch to work. By doing that, I was able to save an extra 100, 200, sometimes $300 a month just by not taking takeout. Again, what I said I did was I looked at my um, debit card, my bank statements, my credit card statements, and I just added up how much money I was spending a month to see how much money I had wasted each month and how much money I'd be saving. I also, what I started doing with my reducing expenses is I really started tightening up on things. Me personally, I don't I don't go out to the stores and go shopping in stores or malls or like anything like that anymore. Once in a while I will, especially when I go on vacations or when I do go on a vacation I will. However, I like to online shop. And I think so many of us in society has become so um, fond of scrolling the internet that we see something online that we like and we purchase it. Literally, I was purchasing things off of Amazon. I was purchasing things off of Walmart app, off of the Nike app, off of sneakers app, off of Macy's. And I'm just purchasing these things. And a lot of times I'm thinking in my head, well, I'm catching it on sale, so it's not a bad thing. But those things add up. So what I had to do is I had to literally stop scrolling the internet so much. I literally had to delete multiple apps off of my phone that I utilize to purchase stuff. Men's Express, H&M, Banana Republic, Nike. I deleted it for a while. And just other different type of apps, Hollister. I got rid of all my apps for a while. Um, that way I could focus on saving. So again, all of that tied into reducing my expenses. The next thing I did, number two, was I got a raise. All right. I know that sounds like, huh? But yeah, that's how I helped pay off my debt quicker. Every year at a job, you will likely be entitled to a raise. And depending on your work performance, depending on how well you do your job, it depends on what type of raise you'll get. For me, I made sure I was a high performer. I made sure I was first person in, the last person out. Um, and by doing that, I was able to get a raise. And I got to the point where I got so good at my job and effective at my job, I started raising my hand for larger projects. And by me raising my hand for larger projects, I got bigger raises. All right. There was a time where I got a 50% raise of my current salary just by raising my hand for a project and taking on that project. I got a promotion, and that promotion came with a 50% salary increase. So, my advice, you want to step up at your job. You want to be that go-to person. You want to know your boss's job. You want to raise your hand and ask your boss what can you do to help them. You want to learn different skills at your job, because if you do that, the reward of it is a better raise. The average raise in America is 3 to 5%. All right. If you just remember what I just said, by raising my hand and taking on a project, I got a job promotion, which came with a 50% raise at what my current salary was at that time. So, where my current salary was, that salary basically I got a 50% of my salary added onto my new salary. And yeah, that was a large raise for me. And that large raise caused me to be able to pay off debt quicker. Because what I did with that large raise was I continued to live on my current salary and I utilized that raise money to go straight to debt. All right. And the third thing that I did was I started a side hustle. All right. The side hustle is actually something I started and I did this year. Over the course of the years, I've amassed over 300, I believe it was $385,000 in debt, somewhere around there, over the course of my college to adulthood years. Um, yeah, I just amassed a lot of debt. And I got to the point where I'm at the beginning of this year, I was a little over $100,000 left in debt. And with that little over $100,000 left in debt, me trying to find new ideas and new ways to continue to get my debt down, I decided to start a side hustle this year. At the beginning of the year, I started a side hustle, and that side hustle was able to help me pay off a huge chunk of debt. All right. That side hustle enabled me to pay off for basically, if I'm being candid and honest, that side hustle allowed me to pay off an additional $35,000 in debt. All right. Basically, what I'm telling you is from January to now, we're in May, that side hustle brought in an additional $35,000 to where I was able to put all of that towards my debt. With the exception of I paid my tithes and offering, because I am a big believer in paying my tithes and offering. I'm a big believer in giving. So with the exception of paying my tithes and offering, all of that money went to helping pay off debt. So I've put myself in a really great position to where this year I will continue my side hustle. I got another big raise this year, and I've continued to keep my expenses low to where my goal is to hopefully have my debt paid off by this year. Right? I'm super excited, super happy and at the point where I can tell you that I'm roughly around $70,000 left in debt, and I'm chasing and I'm on this mission to accomplish this hopefully by the end of the year. What I will tell you is the three debts that I have left is my mortgage. I have one credit card, and then I have my student loan. All right. And a lot of people may say, well, why do you have a credit card and you've paid off all this other debt? The credit card I haven't really focused on paying off just yet, just because it's a 0% interest credit card. All right. This credit card is something that I got at the beginning of this year. I transferred money from one credit card to this credit card that was a 0%, and it's 0% for 21 months. So, yeah, definitely positioning myself to have as less interest as possible as I continue to go on this journey to pay off my debt. With that being said, I don't know if you stayed on or if you're still here. Obviously, you stayed tuned. Definitely like to hear from you in the comments, like to know where you're at on your debt journey. Hopefully this inspired you to really strive to start looking at your finances, strive to pick up your laptop, look at the job skills that you have and what kind of side hustle can you do. Maybe it's you don't have a side hustle right now and you just need to be the best employee you can be so that you can get a raise. So if you've been inspired by this, definitely leave a comment. I would also ask that you share this video because I'm sure there's somebody, somebody that's on the debt journey that needs to hear this, because obviously we all need to get to the point where we're debt free, because being debt free, we're going to have so much freedom in our lives. All right. Definitely make sure you comment, make sure you like, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you on the next one. Later.